Okay, great. So we're here, Fireside Chat with Forrest Stearns. He is the principal artist and co-founder of the Artist in Residency at Google's Quantum AI Lab. He's also run other artist in residency programs, which I'm sure we will talk about. Forrest, I'd love to kick things off. Could you kind of tell us about yourself and what is the work that you're doing these days?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for a kind introduction. My name is Forrest Stearns, and I am first and foremost, I love to draw. I really love the action and the end product of being an illustrator, but I really love drawing. I really love what a good sketchbook does. Not just drawing, but using drawing as a thinking tool and using drawing as a communication tool. And I really believe that the practice of drawing, the verb of making art, is really good for humanity, really interesting. And so I draw always, and my work has always been about how do I one, enjoy making creative things, and then how do I creative problem solve, and then how do I work with people? So a little bit about me. Pretty importantly is I grew up in the mountains. I grew up outside of an urban environment, so very much in nature. I love nature, and I try to bring nature into my work. I quickly found urban street art when I was in my teens and skateboarding, and so I that drew me to the city. And all of a sudden, I had this like love of fine art painting and love of celebrating nature. And I grew up just outside of Yosemite, so loving these specific places in the high country, riding horses and just being there. And all of a sudden, I mixed that with graffiti. So it was like all of a sudden, I was standing on two different legs in two different places. And so that has really pushed my career over the last 2.5 decades of how do I make work that can speak with drawing to people who are solving problems and telling stories that need that art as an activation. So my studio is called Draw Everywhere. I live in Oakland, California. I'm the principal artist at Google Quantum, which is in Santa Barbara, California. So I commute back and forth about once a month, and we can get into what that means. But yeah, that's a little about me. I'm a family man. I got an 11-year-old daughter and a wonderful partner, and a lot of my time is spent supporting the family. And as an artist, it's important to get out of your art head sometimes. So it's nice to have other things to think about. So yeah, thanks for having
Great.
me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's great, Forrest. So how did this opportunity come about?
The Google Quantum opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah, the Google Quantum opportunity is interesting because it's a bunch of scientists making a bleeding edge technology. And you wouldn't think that a scientific lab on the forefront of where we are building computers would want to shoulder and move up close with an artist. But how it came about, I kind of need to reverse engineer the story a little bit. And like I said, I was always into graffiti, and graffiti led me into making artwork for performances. And when I was making artwork for performances, I was kind of making art with story and making art at festivals, a lot of live art. And that put me in front of different people who were supporting different events. And then I became the art director of Deviant Art in Hollywood. And that put me in front of people who are making events digitally. So I just continue to say, what can I solve with drawing? And how exciting will this fun event be for me? And how fun can I make it for other people? So I art directed at DeviantArt, ran their brand, did a bunch of drawing all over the nation, justifying art for millionaires. And then I got picked up by an aerospace firm, and I started an artist in residence program in San Francisco at a spaceship company named Planet Labs. And I asked them point blank if I could draw on their satellites because that's what I do. And so, in saying yes, I expected them to say no, but they said yes. And I thought I was going to paint on one spaceship. And it ended up being 5 years of my career. And we created the first and largest art show in space, put artwork on rocket ships and all over everything. But to me, it was less about making artwork on the specific subject matter in spaceship. I wanted to make art with people and on the thing that they were making. So, they we did a lot of really fun and weird work, and it was very hard to work with a bunch of aerospace engineers. And then I got the poach call from Google Quantum, and Google Quantum picked me up in 2018. Got a call from a scientist who's also a photographer, and he and I immediately understood that we could help each other. And I joined his fledgling team at employee number 25. and they continued to do good work, so that really worked out. But also, my job is to bring valuable ideas to life and to draw people together with them. So not necessarily to art at them. And because I had was so practiced at drawing all the time and reading the room and making out live art about reading the room, both of those skills slid across immediately to the entrepreneurship space and the problem solving space of working with scientists is you listen to the room and you figure out what the intention is and then you can make work with them. So yeah, it was a very honest kind of stair step to Google Quantum, but when I was graduating undergrad or graduating art school, I never thought I would be working with a bunch of quantum physicists, but it's a total blast.
Okay, so many directions to take this conversation because I don't know if we either of us mentioned this, but you have a BFA and MFA in illustration.
I have a BFA in fine art and an
Okay, fine art.
MFA in illustration, and I studied design thinking at Stanford. Yeah, but
Okay,
I think that all three of those things are very interestingly intertwined.
okay. What was it like when you graduated? What did you do? What was that first year or two like?
Post undergrad,
Yeah.
um, that's a great question. In undergrad, I started an art group with my friends and we renovated an old warehouse. I was up at Humboldt State. We renovated a warehouse and every single month we would have an art show. And we weren't very great at making art, but we became very fearless after holding an exhibition every single month. And we may not have been in the exhibition ourselves. We had fine artists and ceramicists and very heady writer artists and graffiti writer artists and illustrators. So we held space for each other and we held a show every month. And that's what got us fearless about making work and in front of a lot of people, but it didn't make us good. So when I got out of grad school, I mean, when I got out of undergrad, I thought I was going to be a gallery artist because I got that BFA and we were having art shows all the time. I just thought that was the avenue. And I was like, wow, I'm going to let someone else sell my work and someone else be the docent of a gallery and I'm going to wait for them to make me money and I need to give them half of the money that they sell. That's an interesting equation. And at that moment, at one of those art shows, I got asked if I could illustrate a children's book and it was about otters. And this guy came up to me and he said, Forrest, do you think we're looking at like graffiti style work? You think you could draw a book about otters? And I said, I yes, absolutely. I could try to draw otters. And in saying yes, that led me to him saying, cool, well, it's going to be a 45-page book and we'll pay you set amount per page and we'll give you 25% up front and then we'll give you royalties. So how's that sound? And I did the math pretty quickly in my head. I was like, dang, you'll give me 25% even before I start this? I need to study illustration. This is where the money's at. And I was in a gallery with a bunch of paintings that weren't selling. So I was like, huh, I can do the same amount of work in the same style, but for someone who's very passionate about what they want to do. So I brought his valuable ideas to life rather than just my own. And working together with someone else was so much more rewarding than just kind of being a shoegazer fine artist. And I'm fine with making artwork about emotions. I'm such a big fan of fine art with a capital A, but I really like working with people and fine art quite often is working at people. And I like to really bring valuable ideas to life through my work. So that's just kind of the type of person I am. And that's how I was feeling after undergrad. After I did that children's book, a friend of mine said, Forrest, you should go to graduate school and study illustration because you're practiced, but you need to get good. And I said, well, thank you for understanding that I need to get good. And thank you for pointing me to these very specific directors and this program that made me understand the elements and principles of design. And if I would have understood the elements and principles of design and to write down every single idea I have in my sketchbook, if I would have understood that going into undergrad, I wouldn't need to go to graduate school. But because I need someone had to teach me that in graduate school, I had to go pay that. Yeah, so I wasn't sure what I was going to do after undergrad. But I just kept being very hungry and saying yes.
Hmm. That's great. And I'm curious. So we've got a question. This is a question from one of the students because you'd mentioned, and I know that you're a big proponent of design thinking.
Yeah.
For those of us in technical environments, trying to bring human-centered design or creative practice into spaces that default to engineering metrics. What's your approach to that first conversation? How do you frame the value of what you do before you have proof that it works?
Hmm. I, that's interesting. There's kind of two parts to this question. Working with hardcore engineers is actually pretty analogous to working with hardcore artists and really good artists and designers in the sense that if you understand to ask a lot of questions first and really get empathetic first, and you understand what challenges are we trying to face, what problems are we trying to solve, what is it that I do and what is it that you all do at the table, and how can we use these skills to solve these problems? If you can understand how to start facilitating those modes and then use your skill sets to be one of the parts of that lever, that's a first step. You can't jump in and expect someone to want art when they don't speak art. Um, and then the second part of the question was ultimately how do you get leverage or how do you get traction when they don't understand what you do? Well, you got to choose your battles. One is don't put yourself in a game that you don't think that you can possibly win. So, I've been in front of a lot of clients even this week. Like a hotel owner wanted me to do a bunch of work at a hotel, and they didn't understand that they needed to figure out a budget for the artwork. They just kind of wanted me to figure out art with them, and maybe it would work, maybe it wasn't. And I knew immediately that I was at the wrong table. And so you got to know going in like, hey, maybe this design thinking just is not hitting right. Maybe it's just not the right song to play. So you got to read the room. It's like if you're a DJ, you really got to like feel what's the rhythm here, and you got to play the next song in rhythm that's going to bring it up or bring it down depending on where you want it to go. Um, Design thinking doesn't always work, but it works a lot, and it really works well with people who are willing to learn and to solve problems.
Great. Another kind of follow-up question is how do you build trust? Because when you've gone into these organizations, some people who maybe, like I know Eric, who you work with now, he has an art background or he understands the power of creativity. But I'm curious, how do you build credibility with people that maybe don't get art or aren't creatives?
Yeah, you find something that you align with, and I quite often I read a ton of books. I understand the vernacular of entrepreneurship. I understand the vernacular of business and science. So going in, know that these people don't care about us. They're not getting paid to care about us. They're in the room to bring people into the room that can help solve their problems. So in order to build trust, is you guys gotta listen, and quite often I will draw something in the space so we have something to point at. And when you have something to point at and kind of start ideating from, then you immediately get people's attention and you immediately can get people to follow along. Um, and you got to be nice. Have a good track record of being nice. Um, Take good people out to coffee and be nice to them and understand what it is that your target audience needs. Um, don't go into these things cold. Go into these things prepared with your ideas ready and understand a little background of people. And being nice is quite often just paying attention. So yeah, building trust. You'll find straight out of school that it's hard to build trust on a academic portfolio, but immediately start figuring out what's in your portfolio that will help what industry solve what problem. And not to sell out or not to censor the work that you do, continue to be yourself and continue to make the most explosive, awesome work that speaks to you, but make work that helps other people make the things that they need to make. Help people make money, and your work will be celebrated if you can use it to leverage. And I know that sounds kind of like a philosophical idea, but it works really well, and we can continue to speak on how that works for me.
Great. And I put in the chat too, like if you all have questions, we want this to be casual. It's a fireside chat. Feel free to either raise your digital hand. Hopefully I can see it. I can't see all of you. Or you can just put it in the chat and I'll kind of check periodically to see it, or maybe if Forrest sees it, he can answer. So can let's talk about creative entrepreneurship because that's something we've talked about in the past, and you're the epitome of it. What is the mindset shift that students need to make from artist who makes work to artist who creates value?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question. Um, Making work is great. I see art as there's two sides to making art. Making art is a verb, it is a practice. Practicing making things is what we should always be doing. I'm mid-career and I'm always trying to make work that's better than my last work and always trying to learn more, reading more, adding more things together. So making work is important, but the other side of that is what do you do with finished work and how do you sell it? So understanding both sides of loving the practice and then that you need to get out of your own way and then let your pieces speak for what they're speaking to. That's how I set up and understand the difference of what the world needs and what I do. Say your question again, Maria.
So, yeah, when we say creative entrepreneurship, what is the mindset shift that students need to
Mm.
make from artist, thinking about themselves as, oh, I make work to I create value.
Well, creating value is definitely like what your work does when you're not there. And so, how do you make something that is the thing that someone needs to pay you for, rather than just making work? It's got to represent something that they need. Entrepreneurs are solving problems. But let me reverse engineer this question and tell you a little anecdote. The Google that I work for, hires me as a creative innovation consultant. I do not work for the Google. I am a contractor because I want to own the work that I do and I want to sell them reproduction rights to the work that I make. Unless it's specifically for a place that I will make it on a different contract and it will land up in a place and it will be permanently on exhibit. So Google needs me to help them do three things. And in those three things is not make art. Google needs to have me help them attract people, explain things when people are attracted and in the space, and I need to activate people when they're there. Google's willing to throw money at those three causes. Google does not need art. They need to attract, explain, and activate. So I run an artist in residence program. I use design thinking as an art director, and I make epic illustrated productions. Those three things help Google attract, explain, and activate because I know how to facilitate into the team with the team. I help bring people up with epic things. So entrepreneurs, like I said, are solving problems. The Google needs to have a built environment that feels like their team can do their best work every single day. That team needs to come in and feel like, wow, I am part of this and I understand the common conversation of the message and the challenges that they're facing here, and I can be part of it. And this work is illuminating those ideas. Because I'm an illustrator, I'm constantly working and helping people. I'm drawing the situation and individually bringing ideas to life. And then collectively, we make things together. And then my work will shine as an illustration that illuminates an idea. Or quite often, that idea will be built all the way out to then be represented on a big mural. So my practice there is I am principal artist, and that means I get to make the work that goes on all of the surfaces in all the campus. I'm the art director, and I use design thinking to understand what does the leadership need? What is the team vibing? What are all of the teams that are building? What are their challenges? And then I take those challenges and I work with the architects and say, as we build this next thing, this team is going to sit there. This team is feeling this way and I will make a piece. And we need to be in the same visual language to make this feel like we're solving these kind of challenges within the bigger visual language that I've established over the last 8 years. And so the last one is how do you stay over time? This was the biggest challenge for me to figure out how to be an entrepreneur and not need to spin up a new business relationship with every single project. Many big artists will, if you're in the mural game or in the big painting game, You'll do one painting, you'll sell it for a person, and then you'll be off looking for the next client. You spend most of your time trying to spin up conversations to make new clients. I started making artist in residence programs, and instead of making new clients, they keep me at the table and they say, what are we going to do next month? What are we going to do next month? What are you doing next month with us? And I just bring in artists to bubble up the common conversation. And then they look forward to having challenges that we can illuminate, that then I can reverse engineer and bring those challenges into the built environment. So it's really a beautiful system, but I didn't solve these problems by believing that art was the answer. I solved these problems by believing that listening really well and starting to draw solutions with people and then using my art chops to make great work that's supported them. That's what matters here.
That's great. I love that distinction of like how you said it so perfectly. I'm gonna butcher it, but like that you, what did you say? It was like not that you're making art, but you're making solutions essentially by, and you're
Yeah,
like listening.
I'm
Yeah.
making art and solutions and then
Yeah.
solutions with art. I'm like
Yeah.
using my skills as a lever to help the person paying me get to where they need to go.
Hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, you're always kind of selling towards a goal. And as an artist, we're kind of creating the lily pads to get to those goals. If you're an illustrator, a good designer, UX, whatever kind of creativity you're doing, it's all comes down to story, right? The end product is the story. And if I can help you get to your goal, like all of you are looking for, what am I going to do after school? What's the next step in this interesting life that is going to be a career in this ever beautiful, changing, weird world that we're in. Um, the goal is next step is success. All I do when I show up for work is listen and figure out what next step is success and how can I make my best work that resonates with me in my practice with them.
Do you have an example of this? Like, kind of a specific example where you heard a theme in a conversation, you were deeply listening and you got an idea and that like led to a body of work? Because I still don't understand how you actually pull people in, the people that work there at Google into your artwork. Like, how do you illuminate the collective conversation?
Well, I think illuminating the collective conversation is an ongoing process. And if you were to see like what's the roadmap of listening, you would just look through my book and you'd see, copious, well-written notes about things. You would see to-do lists and you would see notes about meetings and just constant notes. I take notes. Like I said, I write down every valuable idea I have. And please write down every valuable idea you have so you don't have to have the idea twice. You can have ideas with your ideas. You can stand on your own genius and you can become immediately smarter in your own conversation. Um, yeah, so here we are, like drawing cryostats in conversation. Those drawings are not great. But what that does is that makes them know that I listened, and then they can tell me the next thing. And then I will do some drawings and I will listen and then do the next thing. And then I go back to my studio and deliver something big and shiny and pretty and blinky and bring that back to them. And they're like, wow, that's exactly what we needed versus you didn't read my mind and that's not what I was thinking. When you work with people in a design system, design thinking system, even, you don't need to read people's minds because you're reading their words. And if they misspoke, you got notes. And if you have notes, then you can always revisit your notes. But the thing about writing notes every day, listening for great ideas, is you start to become a magnet for great ideas. I'm not saying that I'm a genius or highly educated or even intelligent, but I know how to find good answers to ideas because I'm constantly looking for answers and I'm constantly writing them down. So by practicing anything, you're going to get better at it. Um, yeah, so the artist in residence program, I mean, I put together a little slide deck a moment ago while we were chatting, um, just about the Google project that is a little deeper than the website. Let me see if I can share with you, and I'll just really bang through some images. Share, Keynote. Say yes when you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Play. So most of my continue to share. Most of my brain looks like this. Um, creative exchange. My offering at Google, I call it the Creative Exchange. Epic Illustrated Productions, Design Thinking Led Art Direction, and the Artist in Residence program. That's what I call the Creative Exchange. And so most of my brain looks like the mycelium of mushrooms eating organic leaves, right? Like there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it, but this is my style. I can go all the way to calligraphy, all the way to graffiti, all the way to nature illustration. This is me in my studio in this room. And I'm making a painting that's 10 feet wide by 4 feet tall that is going to live around a quantum computer called Anacapa. Um, in my studio,
Mm.
here we are. So this is what a day to day looks like. And I'm an only child. My family goes off to school every day. So I'm here alone all day long, like just grinding on my to-do list and grinding on my notes and making things work. Um, then you bring it in and then you apply these things in the laboratory. So, like I said, using an artist in residence program keeps me at the table and it keeps me bringing in new artists at the table and it keeps the leadership understanding that by getting investment in the program, they get more from it, both holistically as a human and the bottom line. You get a lot more investment when you're bringing valuable ideas to life. This is my style. It's not anyone else's style, but like you saw, it's like my sketches. It's like graffiti, but it's also pretty beautiful. Um, this is an example of stepping into a space that is vacuous, empty, and needs to be epic. This was the laboratory warehouse that they gave me, and they said, Forrest, we need to make the future of quantum computing in this room. What are we going to do? And so I love this first image of us walking into the space like, there's a big pile of dirt over there. There's no science happening. What do we need to do to activate this scientifically? And what do we need to do to activate it artistically? Sorry, my kid's doing her hockey gear down the stairs. Um, and then here's the next step of this. This is Eric and I standing shoulder to shoulder, awkwardly social distancing during COVID. And we're looking at the mural that I'm creating all day long in that same room, like that far wall on the left-hand side is this wall. So I work with the team and figure out what's the vibe of the team, what's the spirit of the team, what are the colors of the team, what do they want to look at every day. This is an amazing wall that was 30 feet tall and 100 feet wide. It's kind of like the chapel effect. So I covered the windows in semi-transparent stickers and drew right over the top of it like stained glass. Eric would take off his badge as amazing scientist at the end of the day and put on his painting jacket, and we would paint into the night every single day that we were painting this. So figuring out how to use your art practice to get it to facilitate it so that it becomes an experience is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So we're not just
Because
expecting people to understand art, we're expecting people to understand to be part of it. So there's the
well, and
end product.
also just, I don't know if you introduced Eric, but Eric is the one who runs the whole lab, right?
Yeah, Eric is
Yeah.
the one of the lead scientists. He's the scientist and lead of the campus itself, but he's the creative director. Like I build all of my all of my work and all the briefs I do, all of the research I do that I need to present to people, I angle it at how do I work with a scientist who's an entrepreneur who's creative. We want to work with these people, so we want to make all of the work we do, all the presentations we do, speak to that language, and he receives that very well. He's the one on the right. I also did the hoodies. Um, I love surface design, love to draw and everything. So he loves to get involved, and this is certainly like his extra 20% time. He's building quantum computers, but he also will come do art because he loves being creative. Here's the finished piece. So you can kind of see that most people see the final noun of the art, but they don't see the beautiful practice. They don't see the challenge that you face. And you all know in school, you're like, what the hell am I going to do to answer this challenge of this class, of this maybe specific piece of homework? You just kind of scaffold it up and start building your skills and always try to hit home runs. And then if you hit a home run, make sure you got good photos. Document your work. And most of the time, home runs are always kind of buttressed with more practice. Here we are. Here's Eric and I just having a blast in the lab. There's a quantum computer to the right. here I am standing in front of a big mural that I made for the space, working with them to abstractly tell me what quantum computing looks like and feels like. But the reason why I put this photo in here is because of joy. Make sure that the work you're doing is bringing you joy and bringing other people joy. That doesn't mean it can't be hard. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a difficult push to figure out how to do it, but you'll find a lot of joy in your life, or you'll find a lot of joy in your work if you can bring joy into it. These are some of my artists in residence. It's so much fun to work with people who want to be working with you, who want to bring their best work to the table. Here's another space that we made. Here's the cafeteria. So if anyone's familiar with lambda, this is a mathematical symbol, and they said, make this the Lambda Cafe. And I had to figure out what lambda was too. But in this case, we wanted to bring three artists together to do one piece. So reading the room, what are people going to do in this room? What's the point of the space? How can I flex my artists' superpowers while making a space that we will not be in to explain the artwork, but they can just love it and enjoy it. Here's another giant stairwell in a different building celebrating the name of the quantum processor, Sycamore. This is like a 40-foot tall by 80-foot wide piece that I had to do in here in on hexagons. There's like 3-foot tall hexagons and like 70 of them on this piece. Here's the lab again with art on the quantum computers and art on the walls with quantum computers and my hand lettered signs. So I really like the fact that I've built a polymathic set of skills in my artwork. I love hand lettering. I love I love cursive. I love painting in plein air. It's such a blast to go outside and paint. I like to paint like I draw. So I put drawing work all in my drawings. And then I love studying abstract and like what the heck is abstract? So here's a good example of using all of those things together in order to have a body of work that doesn't just stand on what has been done, but it's like, how do we use what has been done as a tool to bring valuable ideas to life? There's no edge between the art, the science, the architecture, and nature itself in this case. And that's the challenge that I'm trying to solve. Here's another big mural. Look at this. They told me I was going to do a mural on a wall. And then when I got there was this giant glass window all the way to the wall. What? Luckily, I make modular work, so I just broke my piece in half and just ran the window right through the piece of art. Here we go again. So yeah, that kind of shows you the steps at which we talk to our clients. I don't know how to stop sharing. There we go. Stop sharing. But yeah, I hope that that was
That's
illuminating.
great. Yeah, that's great. We have a couple questions, but thanks for sharing that because it just helps to kind of get a sense for your world and also see your style. So I want to ask two of these questions. So do you find yourself compromising your taste in the service of a client's request, which might not completely meet your quality criteria?
Mm,
Um, I find that a lot of companies, especially in the fashion world, are choosing their artistic collaborators based on the social media relevance rather than choosing the artist because their work could be functional for the brand or company and elevate their world.
that's a powerful question. Um, yes, yes, and yes. Having an artist is your job is to build taste in yourself. Your job is to go grok the world and go steal every idea and go and churn it all together and make a big fruit smoothie out of all these ideas and like make something that represents you and that tastes good to you and that feels good to the world because it makes you glow in the dark. But the people in fashion design and the people in every other industry don't care about what makes us glow in the dark. They care about what makes them glow in the dark. And so I'm going to draw the Venn diagram real quick of when I can find a piece of paper. I'm almost done with my sketchbook and then I can never find a blank piece of paper. Start right here. All right. So this is the Venn diagram that I always draw up when I give this lecture to up and coming students. This circle is you. That circle is everything you love, everything you're passionate about, everything you're good at, everything that makes you glow in the dark, everything that you go to the store and you're like, hell yeah, this thing represents me. I'm going to buy it because it's me. But most importantly, here is them. THEM, them. This is the rest of the world. This is what everybody else is. You and your work and your ego and your lovely human being, this is so important for you to be you and for you to go figure out how to be a great artist in your own practice and love making your work. They only care about this much of you because that's what will help them solve the problem. This is a very liberating Venn diagram to understand because you don't have to be everything to them. They only need a little bit of you. So if you realize that the tastes of fashion industry or the taste of comic books or the taste of surface design or the taste of tech is constantly changing and every human has their own taste, you don't need to bring your ego to the table. You just need to know, does the work that I love to make and that I'm good at making help them with the little thing that they need? And if it doesn't, and if they don't like it, that has nothing to do with you or your quality of work. That has everything to do with their taste. And that doesn't make their taste bad, and that doesn't make your work good, or that doesn't make your work bad and their taste good. It just means there's not a perfect fit. There's no overlap in the Venn diagram. Go find other clients. Go ask other questions of, can my works work here? I had to ask 1,000 places, does my work work here, in order for one of them to say yes. And I've been through a lot of uh, different verticals in the business space because I'm problem agnostic. Like I don't care who I'm working for as long as they're good people and I can celebrate nature in my style there. So you'll find that people are paying you to solve the problem for their audience quite often because we're surface designers. And quite often there's social media metrics really highly involved. I circumvent that by going to leadership and helping them create spaces versus create things that are going to go on and represent them in the interwebs. That's a bigger challenge. And there's a lot of people trying to solve that, and a lot of people that are better, younger, more hungry illustrators that are work for less money. And but they don't understand how to make a big, well-rounded offering for leadership. And that's where my innovation consultancy really pans out. But I would love to help the people that I work with have better taste, so I'm constantly giving them books, taking them to the museums, asking them what they love, asking them what their family loves, and like getting to know people. And by getting to know people heart to heart, you will sway their interest. So you can help them help you if you are nice to them.
And it's interesting too, Forrest, because you really have a very clearly defined niche, but you didn't always, right? That was a
Didn't
long
always.
journey of figuring out, saying yes to a lot of things,
Mhm.
hustling, uh, developing skills, working on your skills and figuring out what works for you, what your niche is.
Yeah. And early on, I learned calligraphy when I was very young, when I was, elementary and high school. And writing things for people was always a hit. And then graffiti was like writing things for people bigger with more bold graphic nature. And mixing that with street art, I could add characters to that. So it's always been a through line of using drawing as my jam and figuring out where I could use art as a lever to help bring value to people. Live art was great. I mean, I did a ton of skateboards and CD covers and magazine ads and logos and tattoos for people, all because people love drawing. Humans are a mark-making species, so I started there. But I just learned how to scale it up because then I continued to help new people solve problems with drawing. And my firm is still called Draw Everywhere because I believe wholeheartedly in the impact of drawing over everything else. And so people that don't need drawing, I don't need to work with them. But I can smile at them. I can be nice to them. That is, I know that they won't pay me for my work, so they are just humans next to me. They're not my target audience.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
early on, we had to understand our target audience. So to your point, you got to understand how to focus and then how to kind of backpedal a little bit to say, maybe my specific drawing style won't solve this problem, but I need to get paid. So what other art skills do I have that then I can collectively like start working with people and bring them back to my drawing in my case. Because quite often people won't like a specific thing I did, a specific, we call it like a sandwich I made, but they're hungry. Like you don't have to eat that sandwich, but you're gonna need to eat a sandwich. So I'm gonna need to like figure out how to give you the calories that you need that will metabolize in a way to like take you further. So you got to be well rounded. And that's why I love to draw a lot of different things so I can be well rounded.
Hmm.
And
Well,
I
and
was always that way.
you're well-rounded even beyond drawing too. And
Yeah.
I this is really universal because it's I think there's a big distinction with when people figure out they find success when they really start to figure out what is the problem that they're solving, right? It's not for the most part what they're doing, whatever that is, whatever that craft or that skill is, people aren't buying it in and of itself, right? They're buying it to do a thing, to right, to like create an impact or to have a result. And so what you do is like, what is the result these people want? You reverse engineer.
Yeah. And we have to be careful with this philosophy in the sense that um, all of the designers of the world would love for it to be that simple. You know, designers solve problems, and the beauty of good design is that you don't see the good design, it's just solving the problem. Good industrial design, good design with pixels, it solves the problem. But as soon as we want to be human, as soon as we want to be emotive, we need to start to kind of go into the art side of it and start bringing up and talking about feelings and talking about like what does it mean to be human, and there needs to be some more gesture and some more abstractness and some more ethereal nature to the work. So we have to practice that side of our skill sets, and then we have to come and figure out, cool, maybe I can use a little bit of that to help solve some problems. um, I did a lot of fashion design work in my career, and quite often I had to figure out like what was the main story and the vibe that they're trying to tell, and then how do I make work on that vibe, and then I could kind of laser focus a bunch of different styles of my drawing into that. But my piece itself wouldn't have landed without the story. So yeah, we have to know that problem solving is a really good metric if you're a very good designer and entrepreneur, but just problem solving without soul or humanity won't make your art great.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. I want to ask another question. This is from Chris. You mentioned this collaborative community aspect. How did you manage or balance this collaborative effort with the Google project in Santa Barbara with your studio in Oakland?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I've that's a fun question. I go down to Santa Barbara about once a month, and circumstantially, the laboratory is so highly secure that I can't bring in artists off the street and let them go and just make work in the common conversation in the lab without me being there. That's just kind of like this envelope of experience won't allow that. Where previously I was in an aerospace lab in San Francisco, a startup, and I came in about employee 25 as well, and left at employee 500, like amazing growth in 5 years. I could bring in an artist, and I was directing the program while being the principal artist of the company, but that artist would work next to me and be the gregarious one making work within the common conversation. And then I could leave, and they would need to be there from 10 to 20 hours a week to get paid what the artist in residence stipend was. So it's very circumstantial. I've done artist in residence programs at summer camps for adults, at venture capitalist summer camps. I'm running an artist in residence program at UC Berkeley's Botanical Garden right now. So once a month, going there to practice. Artist in residence programs are really cool because you're bringing in an artistic practitioner into a space that loves the making of art, and they need the humans to be there making the thing. At Google Quantum, the artists that I bring in, I have to be in the same room with, but luckily I have enough experience to drive as director as well as drive as principal artist, and being an exemplar of making good work or making semi good work, and that's trying to make good work. I love not making good work and making it better in the common in the situation. So the artists that I bring in, I introduce them to specific scientists, and then they will spin up a collaboration, and then they'll work remotely with each other sometimes. And then I have an artist in residence side of this where we wrap quantum computers in paintings, like these paintings that I'm doing behind me. This is the start of a big painting And you can see there's some trees in it celebrating Wytham Woods and just outside of Oxford. And this painting wraps around a quantum computer. And if you look at my website, you see all these paintings that are by international artists, and I hire them, I commission them to do a piece that then I reproduce as a print and physically put that on a quantum computer. Like here's one right here that this is the R&D piece of the Yosemite painting. And this is a painting that I made in this room that then wraps around a quantum computer. So the artists sometimes get to work with people that care about the specific names of our quantum computers. So I will ultimately buy someone tacos or coffee, introduce people, be that connector, and be that network uh, director by being really kind and just get them talking. And all of a sudden, that artist will be making a piece about that place that we're celebrating with that quantum computer. And I won't have to have hands on, but I won't be mute to the situation either. So it's a lot of direction, but I really think that the value of creativity is really helping people find value. And so, that's an art form unto itself. And that really is always hugging the work that I do. Like I don't do work in a vacuum.
What is the biggest misconception um, of non-creatives like engineers or scientists that they have about us? And how do you correct that during your work?
I think a big misconception about the arts, is that we are transient bohemians that are not worthy of getting paid because we don't show up, and all of our work is so ethereal and so in the clouds that we can't be expected to be responsible. And I know plenty of artists that meet all of those criteria. I went to art school with many kids that all they wanted to do was get high and paint. And it's fine to get high in paint, but if you expect people to pay you, they're not going to pay you to get high in paint. So we have to be, quite often, the people in the suits in the room that are responsible and have a track record of building trust. And so I wear this suit not just because I like to dress up, but I like to be the artist in the room that's in the suit, because there's no one else in suits anymore. And they don't think that I'm the artist because I'm the dude in the suit. So it instantly breaks a paradigm. And then I'm always in this suit in meetings. So I'm the guy in the suit that's dressed better than everybody else. So I break the rules that society makes so people have more trust and more interest in what I do. You got to become that light bulb somehow, but you can't be cliche. Like it's got to be a thing. And so I just went the way of, this is how business people work. When I do business meetings with bankers, they all dress like this. And then I'm invisible. It's wonderful to be invisible amongst them. But when I do business meetings with people at Google, they're all wearing hoodies, and I'm the only jerk in the room with the suit on. And they're like, "Who's this guy?" And like I immediately have their attention as an artist. So, you have to kind of bend the rules of reality in order to be able to exist here as a human. And that's quite often a little bit of magic and a whole lot of responsibility.
I love that. Um, okay, I am curious, like so we have time for maybe a couple more questions. Um, what is some advice that you have for people who are, coming out of school, starting their career, we have other people that aren't in illustration as well. So, just kind of what is advice that you would give to them?
The same question that you're asking yourself right now, of what am I going to do with this little pocket full of knowledge that's amazing, that's making you great people and making your practice great. Know that the question that you have, like, what am I going to do with this, is a question that every human has all the time. Like none of us are certain all the time of what we're doing and how we're going to do the next thing. So be okay with not knowing everything. Be cool with learning more things every single day and be a voracious learner. Um, Addict yourself to the dopamine of curiosity and the love and appreciation of just being attentive to things, and you will become smarter. You're at a step in your life where in 3 years you won't remember what this felt like because you'll be in a different place. And I am, wow, 20 years out of undergrad. And so I can still remember the vibe and the feeling and the love what we had in undergrad, but I've had 20 years of experience. So you won't catch up to me, but you will catch up to you, and you will stand on your own shoulders if you write everything down that inspires you and then continue to activate those things and get smarter every day. Um, that's the goal that I have for all of you, is to don't stop learning after art school. And if you look at the numbers, like only 20% of us do artwork after they graduate. The other 80% is off being in some other service industry. Like I love a good coffee, and I love it when my coffee person sees my sketchbook and they're like, I went to art school too, but I don't want to make coffee for people. I want to make art for people. And so continue to practice every day and don't stop getting better.
Mhm. What's a skill that you've built that keeps paying dividends across kind of every role you've had or opportunity?
Having great handwriting. Um, before I didn't have great handwriting, I wrote in chicken scratch and nobody took me seriously. And as soon as I started really effectively caring about my handwriting, I started taking copious notes. And as soon as I started taking copious notes, I started listening better. And as soon as I started listening better, I started getting smarter. And the circle, like I continued to like go up that beautiful practice and reflection all the way up because I started paying attention to my knowledge. So practicing and always taking notes and using good handwriting made me 1,000% better of an artist and a much better person. Paying attention to handwriting is the best thing you do. You're always writing things down. So, yeah, go be a
Unexpected
graffiti artist.
answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go be a tagger and make
Yeah.
every single tag amazing. And
Um,
don't tell your teachers I said that.
okay, so because I'm sure other people are thinking this, because you've talked about several artist in residency programs. How do you find the artists that you want to work with?
That's a good question. Um, in the case of Google, I have to reverse engineer the current challenge and then go through my Rolodex of artists and figure out like who's a trustworthy artist, usually someone that I've done some work with. So ultimately, so I know their phone number and I know they're trustworthy. Um, like who's someone that I've done some work with that their work could fit within this challenge we're facing. So that's kind of the way about I solve the problems for this instance. At the botanical garden, very different. I show up as the principal exemplar artist and with open arms to the community of like, show up and paint with me. I'm going to be doing studies for my big paintings. Show up and you can paint and draw next to me for 2 hours, and then we'll have a critique. And they love that we've built an amazing community that shows up to the garden and we all practice together. Like these paintings, these drawings that you're seeing right here are all drawings that I've done at the botanical garden, and they're not finished. They're just like funny little illustrative pieces that then I will make into this giant 85-inch painting. Um, yeah, so every artist in residence program has a different circumstance. I make artist in residence programs inside of institutions. Traditionally, artist in residence programs are sit outside of institutions and are about the art side of things, where they provide you a space that you can be residents in, and quite often you have to pay to be there. And so I don't do that. That's not the side of residencies that I mess with. But those are great too. Just figure out every way that you can get involved with the world with your work. And if you feel like you can solve problems, um, okay, I'll tell you another side of this that just popped in my mind that's very important. When you have an artist in residence program at a high-tech space that's famous, everybody wants to be part of it. And everyone is saying quite often, hey, this is going to be really good for my portfolio. Really famous people call me up and they're like, can you put my art on spaceships? Can you put my art on quantum computers? This will be really good for my portfolio, my practice. I don't care if you're famous. Go be famous somewhere else. Like go bother someone else with your famousness. If you call me and you say two things, you say, "This is what I want from the common conversation because I've done my research about what's happening in your space and I just know the vibe." And then you say, "I want to add this to the common conversation." If you know what you want and you know what you can add and you can articulate that with a good portfolio, I will hire you every day. If you're famous and don't tell me those two answers, no way. So, yeah, it's about meeting the solution.
Well, also what you highlight there is what your point was earlier, which is providing value. It's the Venn diagram. That famous person was calling up and they were in their own
Yeah.
you bubble,
Yeah, I was like
but they
way
weren't
out here.
they weren't talking about, well, how they can help you or help the, Google or whatever the institution was,
Yeah.
that um and so that's a good point too, because we didn't touch on it a ton, but about sales or how do you know, how do you get people excited to work with you? And it's getting out of your own head and what you want and really thinking about what do they need or what do they want and how can you help them get that?
Yeah. Setting up setting up your work in a case study manner. And what that means is you present your work, whatever work it is. I don't care what you draw. If you like to draw anime Furbies, or if you like to draw graffiti letters, or if you like to draw architecture, or if you like to design clothing, it doesn't matter to me what you like to do. But write me a case study on your website that says, I love this work and I see it landing in this place in the world that helps this group or this challenge or this nonprofit or this for-profit thing. Here's where I can see it happening and start to set yourself up to show your work that helps bring value and people will start to look at it. Because most people going to art school, I went to art school late, so I had some experience going in, but most people in art school that I met had never had an art show. They didn't know how to present their work. They didn't know the challenges. Start to present your work a lot profusely now. You don't have to be good at it, and I actually urge you to be bad at it to learn and to ask every question so you can get good at it. If you're good at it now, then you probably shouldn't have gone to art school because you got superpowers. Um, just start practicing getting out there. Start writing case studies that show that your work matters to somebody. If you're 1 in 20, or if you're 1 in 1 million, then there's like 20 of you in the Bay Area, that want to buy your work. 20 instant fans. Just tell the story about the value of your work. Don't rate it next to other people and don't wait for Instagram to tell you that people love your work because no way. I was about to swear. No way. Don't do that. Instagram is great for inspiration, but don't benchmark it against how good you are. Benchmark how good you can tell the world that you are, and then find the people that resonate with your work.
Mm, that's great. Well, on that note, it was a fast hour. Um, we are going to wrap up here. Is there any last question
Right now's the time. Ask your question.
you
And
think you
here's
could?
my last advice. If there's no questions, don't be afraid to ask questions
Yes.
because you will walk away from a situation not learning anything if you didn't ask the question that you wanted to learn. The best way to learn is to shut up and listen.
All right. Well, we got a heart. Forrest, thank you so much for sharing your story and inspiring us with all your insights and, yeah, advice. I hope you all got a lot out of this, and thanks so much for coming. Yeah, hope to see you at the info session and on the Creative Entrepreneurship website. Thank you so much, Forrest. This was awesome.
My pleasure. And I would love to see all of your work. So give it all to Maria so I can see it. Give me your,
All
your
right.
socials. And hold up your sketchbook if you got a sketchbook right now. What do you got on your sketchbook? Hold it up. Hold it up. Let's see it.
Let's see. Okay,
One
we
of
got some
you. What up,
sketchbook.
Chris? Chris
Chris
won
has a
that challenge.
sketchbook.
Hey,
Okay,
Enoch, what
Enoch
up?
does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. There's a few of you. I,
All
I
right, that's
trust
good.
3 of you out of 6. The
Yeah.
rest of you, you got work to do. All right. I'm
Thanks
kind of
so much.
joking. Much respect.
Thanks, Forrest. Thank you all. See ya. Bye.